what we call today the evil axis and their extension within the West Bank and Gaza.
My producer is grappling me, but I have to ask just this one question just in case. Do you expect that the Hezbollah will also involve themselves in this conflict because of what's going on now? And I'm sorry to do this, but you're down to 10 seconds to answer that.
I just got a phone call from the Middle East. Hezbollah spokesman has just said that he engaged Israelis in the Shab'a farm. We need to follow on this in the next hour.
You're talking about southern Lebanon?
Southern Lebanon.
Thank you so much. We certainly appreciate you sharing your perspective. We'll be talking to you again, Walid.
Certainly.
If you're just joining us, the latest from Israel, Israeli forces are pressing on with its military crackdown in some of the Palestinian territories. This despite what was asked of them by the UN Security Council at 4:30 this morning. And us to talk a little bit about this, Mr. Abdullah is a New Jersey councilman for the Palestinian American Congress. Thanks for being here, Mr. Abdullah. We appreciate it. You heard what he said. In 1986, by the way, during the interview, we both said 96. We got our dates mixed up. It is early in the morning. But in 1986, President Reagan did hit the Libyans hard. He hit Gaddafi at his own compound, actually killed a member of his family, and we didn't hear from Gaddafi for a long time. It seemed to have scared him to a point of inactivity. He says that comparison is similar to what they're hoping to do with Yasser Arafat, scare him into inactivity, I suppose. Will it work?
Well, one thing that Mr. Regev has failed to notice is that there is no comparison in these two situations that he tries to compare and bring together. Being that America had taken those actions against Gaddafi, there is two major differences between Gaddafi and Yasser Arafat. One, Gaddafi was dealing with America. We're dealing with Israel. The discontent level with Palestinians between Israelis and Palestinians is far higher than that of Libyans and Americans. That's one. Two, with that comparison, President Gaddafi had control of his people. He had control of his army. He had control of all actions taken by his army and his people.
Are you saying Arafat does not?
At this point in time, Arafat does not have control of these quote-unquote terrorist
groups. And you're going to go on to tell me that he doesn't have control because of what the Israelis have been doing to him, right?
Absolutely.
So you're saying that if he doesn't have control, then who does? Because these things are still going on. Who's calling the shots?
At this point in time, you have the militia groups operating independently due to the fact that their president and their leaders being undermined by the authorities of Israel.
So Iran, Hamas?
No, there is Hamas, there is Fatah, Fatah could be operating independently right now. There is Jihad al-Islami, there's Hezbollah. These are all groups that are fighting for the same cause, and when they see that their own leader is being taken and detained by forces of Israel, of course they are going to operate in any way that they see suitable so that they can end this.
So Israel is hoping that this situation will at least bring the Palestinians to the table. Do you believe it will?
I don't believe it will. See, what Israel is doing is trying to paint the same picture by saying that they are doing exactly what America is doing by declaring war on terrorism. America cannot allow Israel to make this comparison due to the fact that these people are not terrorists. These are freedom fighters fighting oppression. If we are to call them terrorists, then we are to call the same people who fought to make the United States an independent country, the militiamen of 1776, we are to call them terrorists as well.
Do you think this situation is going to become a regional conflict?
This will become a regional conflict if it already hasn't escalated to a regional conflict. These steps that are being taken by Israel right now show a lack of respect for the international community and in particular the Arab community.
But let's mention this. Israel did show a certain level of restraint. There were about 3 or 4 different suicide bombings that they didn't even respond to. And then, just as the Arab League has come up with a proposal that seems to at least make us a little bit hopeful that the two sides can come together, we hear about this Passover massacre in Netanya. It seemed to be the straw that broke the camel's back, was it not?
Well, Rick, what the media here and the people here fail to realize, and what Israel keeps in the dark, is that the fact that these bombings occurred, they show not what has been precedent.
But what I'm talking about in that one little period of time, Mr. Abdullah, just that one 4 or 5 day period when Israel truly did not respond. I know we can't go back to 1948, but shouldn't we look for every window of opportunity to seek peace? And in this case, the Palestinians, through Hamas, blew it.
Well, that is what I'm telling you, is within that one period of time, Israel failed to show what had been really happening. There were actions being taken even during the summit occurrence by Israeli defense forces against refugee camps.
That we didn't know about, that we didn't report?
Precisely.
Well, Mr. Ramsey Abdallah, we thank you so much for joining us. It is obviously not an easy situation to solve, but we thank you for coming in and sharing your perspective. Still ahead here on MSNBC Congress, and he's good enough to share some of his perspectives with us on what is going on right now. Mr. Abdallah, thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you very much.
What do you make of this report that I just found out about, that there has been another attempted suicide bombing into Israel, or another incursion that was stopped, I should say?
As I had previously said, emotions are running rampant right now due to the fact that frustration levels have reached an all-time high in Palestinian territories amongst Palestinians for seeing what's occurring, and they cannot respond to it, nor can they react to it. They feel that this is the only way that they can react to it and have their voices be heard. So
obviously the suicide bombings are going to continue. There is no sign that they're going to stop, right?
The suicide bombings might continue unless America intervenes at this point in time and puts an end to Sharon's continuing fourth thrashing of the Palestinian leader and Palestinian territories.
So your point is that the United States needs to come in and come down hard on the Israeli government and say, look, you've got to get out of the Palestinian areas.
Absolutely. America has made a great effort by being involved in the vote that happened with the Security Council.
Last night at 4:30 in the morning. You surprised that the United States would go along with that? After all, think about it. The United States, just the night before, had given the green light for the Israelis to move into an area like Ramallah and the Arafat compound.
I don't think I was surprised. This is well expected of a world power like America.
So what the United States was saying to them then was, it's okay to go in, but don't stay there.
What America was saying is, in a way, it was kind of an indecisive moment for America, whether they should allow this to happen, whether they shouldn't allow this to happen. The fact that they did allow Sharon to operate in this manner, and they didn't react even quicker than they did last night, is a disappointment, however.
You're a Palestinian, so let me ask you this question. If right now the Palestinians could be offered the deal that was offered to Yasser Arafat when he was negotiating with President Clinton and Ehud Barak, if we could go back and freeze time and go back to that very moment, would you accept that?
At that point in time, first off, let me correct you. I'm an American before I am a Palestinian. I was born here.
Appreciate that.
At that point in time, let me say this.
Well, I'm not asking you about that point in time. I'm asking you about right now.
Well,
I mean,
if we were to take that point in time and have it
right
now, and I would be at that peace table, I would not be able to react any more or any less than what Yasser Arafat had reacted at that point in time, due to the fact that he is a representative of the people for the people. The people did not share any kind of agreement with what was present. It was not a generous offer, generous enough on the part of Israel.
What was missing? They were giving you a country.
They were giving us a country. However, they were saying that in lieu of us giving you lands, you cannot have any part of Jerusalem. We will have complete and utter control of Jerusalem. You will have functionality in Jerusalem, but you will not have any claim to Jerusalem.
How do you split up Jerusalem? I mean, this is a historic problem, isn't it?
This has been the problem that has been ongoing now for the 54-year battle.
Well, what is the Palestinian version? How much of Jerusalem do you want?
We want no more, no less than that of what we are entitled to, which is the east side of Jerusalem.
Let me ask you this question, because it's something that I've been curious about in the past. What we would consider historic Palestine also was a chunk of Jordan, was it not?
At that point in time, it wasn't a chunk of Jordan. It was controlled by Jordanian military due to the fact of the split up after the Ottoman Empire.
The reason I'm asking this question is, should not some Arab countries contribute to the formation of a new Palestine as much as, or perhaps even more so, since they have more land than the Israelis?
I would say absolutely not, only due to the fact that the Israelis weren't entitled to the land that they hold right now. The boundaries of 1967 were to be upheld, and they were to be respected by the wishes of the Security Council as well as the American and the world view overall.
Mr. Abdallah, we thank you for being with us and sharing your perspective with us.
Thank you very much, Fred.
Well, the pressure certainly is on both sides this Saturday morning, and we're watching closely to see what happens next. Ronnie Milo is the Israel Minister of Regional Development, and he's good enough to join us now from Tel Aviv. Mr. Milo, thanks so much for joining us. I imagine that you were able to hear at least part of my conversation with Mr. Abdallah, were you? What is your take on his statement toward the end as to how Palestine should be partitioned?
First of all, I think that it was quite clear why Prime Minister Barak and President Clinton offer Arafat almost 98% of the territories to have a Palestinian state, to establish a Palestinian state, and he refused, which means that he don't want settlement, he don't want peace. Probably he wants to fight against Israel all the way long.
Mr. Abdullah makes the point that the only thing left on the table that couldn't be resolved was the issue of Jerusalem, how that would be split or divided. Do you think that's still a problem today, or do you think that that could be solved?
I was part of the government of Mr. Barak. I was the Minister of Health, and I remember very well that the proposal of President Clinton include also parts of Jerusalem. This was the reason that I myself opposed the proposal, but the majority in the government adopted it, and it was proposed to the Palestinians with part of Jerusalem. And every part in Jerusalem that Arabs are living was proposed to the Palestinians, and therefore this was not the issue of Jerusalem, neither the issue of the territories. It was only one issue, the issue that Arafat refused to accept this peace plan, and he refused till today to accept any peace plan. He even refused to accept the ceasefire plan of General Zinni, of Vice President Cheney when he was here, and refused to meet Arafat because Arafat refused.
Do you think, sir, do you think, Mr. Minister, do you think that the actions that Israel is taking now against Yasser Arafat by attacking his compound will make him more likely to come to the bargaining table and agree to something perhaps similar to what was discussed? And let me remind you that just 2 days ago they announced, Mr. Arafat announced, that he's now willing to abide by both Tenet and Mitchell.
This operation of the Israeli army is not for convincing Arafat for anything. We did it mainly because we had to fight against the terror that is killing Israelis almost every day. We must remember that in the Seder of Pesach 2 days ago, 22 people were killed when they were sitting around the tables in the Seder. It's a holiday of the Jewish people. And would like to remind you that when the Palestinians asked Israeli that during the Ramadan time, which is holy to the Muslims, we would hold fire, we did it. And we didn't do anything during this time, even to prevent and to defend ourselves, while they was asked by them. When we have a holiday, a very holy day, which is the Passover, and we were sitting all the families together, grandfathers, parents, grandparents. They did what they do with this suicide committee.
Yeah, the group that they did. And Hamas has claimed responsibility for that. Let me ask you, sir, the UN Security Council has asked you to, or has called for a withdrawal from the Palestinian cities. How long do you expect before your government abides by that request?
It is difficult